You're very welcome back. Now, with so many businesses, restaurants, and schools closed, you may find yourself at home today, whether you're working from home or have found yourself temporarily unemployed due to the current pandemic. However, my next guest believes this could be the perfect time for you to find out what you really want to do in your career, take a step back, and discover what path you want to take next. Sheila Walsh, you're very welcome to the
Thank
show.
you.
Now, you're a coaching psychology and organizational consultant,
Mm.
personal and development coach. What is that?
There's lots of words
There's
in that,
lots of
isn't
words
there?
there. I'm
Yeah.
very confused. So tell me, enlighten me here.
So basically, I suppose coaching has become such a thing that there's so many different versions of it.
Yeah.
So it's important to say what it is. From my perspective, I work with someone in a holistic point of view.
Hmm.
So your personal life is massively impacted by your professional and vice versa. And then when I work with organizations, it's about understanding how best to work with people in general,
Yeah.
and how to help people perform at their best in a very human way.
Yeah. How does that work though?
In what way?
In like if you're working with an organization, is it like getting the best from your people or being more understanding as an entire team, or what way do you fit into that? If
Yes,
it's
so there's a couple of routes. So one is working with teams. So
hmm
it's actually me going in and working with teams.
hmm
One of the ways that I prefer is working with either managers or with HR teams to shadow consult. So it's where you help them think outside the box and think around the things that are presenting as issues. So you're supporting people doing their job
Yeah,
better.
and I suppose in this current climate as well, a lot of people are working from home. The landscape has completely changed hugely. I mean, even from your professional point of
Mm.
view, a lot of your work would be one-on-one. The social distancing must have impacted that hugely.
Yeah, so one of the challenges now is supporting people moving online.
Mm,
So I've been doing online work for about 6 years,
yeah.
but it's people getting used to it. People who are like, What software are you going to use?" Because they're not used to that. So really, it's about people getting used to the different ways of having
Yeah.
conversations with video because we like to see the cues.
Yeah,
You know.
that is very important as well. And for someone who's not used to working at home, even if they have all the remote tools, the laptops, the Skypes, everything else that they need, it's tempting if you're not in your usual environment. I mean, you need to keep some sort of routine, difficult and all as it may be, isn't it? It's vital for that.
Massively. I suppose the one of the big things is that our homes are built for us to relax in,
Mm,
usually. Even a work office isn't really built for us to be in most of the time.
yeah.
So one of the big issues I'm finding with clients is they're saying, "I'm at home, it's all set up, but my iPad's there and the TV's there. And listen, the washing isn't done and I could go to the kitchen." So it's actually the environment at home isn't set up to work. So that's a lot of what we have to think about now, not just the computer and the laptop and the office space,
Yeah.
but actually how are we going to stay focused during the workday?
I learned that quite a long time ago because I do quite a lot of work from home. And if I have any distractions, forget about it. So the computer, the laptop, it's in a separate room. There's no TV in there. There's no distractions. There's no nothing. So you can just focus on doing something because you do have to be disciplined. But you can't be sitting at the desk 8 hours either. Like, what's the best way to approach it if it's new to you?
Well, I think the first thing is everybody needs to know what it is that works best for them.
Mm,
So some people work really well for very focused periods of time. Other people work really well by having noise in the background. So everyone needs to figure out what it is that I do best in that environment. So at work, are you the one with the earphones with the noise cancelling, sounds on, or are you the person who likes to hear the chatter?
yeah.
It's about thinking about how you work best and then reducing expectations
Yeah.
massively needs to happen.
And I suppose a lot of people who are lucky enough to be able to work from home, it's great that they've been able to keep their jobs. Unfortunately, as we've
Mm,
seen over the last number of days, thousands upon thousands of people are now out of work, either
yeah.
temporarily, unfortunately, a lot of them full time, that their businesses perhaps won't be opening again because of this current pandemic. Trying to, I suppose, take any positives out of this, which I know is extraordinarily difficult, it could be a good time to reassess what you're doing with your life. How would you suggest people go about maybe upskilling, maybe changing their career path and focusing on this time to be a bit more productive?
Yeah, Elaine, I think that there's an opportunity in this. As much as this is really, really difficult and there are some horrible experiences happening, we also have space that we haven't had for a long time because we've been very busy. And so there is actually an opportunity to reflect a little bit and decide if your career has been going the direction you want or just the direction that you've been carried in. So there is a chance to reflect on that. There's also some practical things, looking at your CV, making sure your LinkedIn is up to date. And LinkedIn is actually key at the moment
Mm.
because everybody's online. So, like, have your LinkedIn up to date, have the picture ready, have your title, whether you're working or not, make sure that people can find you online because that's actually where a lot of us are for the next coming weeks,
Or if not months, we'll
if
all
not
be
months.
working from a digital sphere rather than a personal one,
Mm.
as we can see here. But in general, like, how often should we kind of reassess our lives and take a look back at our career and see if we're happy. Because sometimes, I know me, sometimes I'm guilty of it as well. If I'm dissatisfied in some part of my life, I tend to blame my job for that, where the job probably isn't the real problem.
So you're like 80% of people,
Good.
it
I
seems.
thought I was the only idiot doing that.
You know, I suppose what we like to do is complain about the things we feel we have control in.
Yeah.
So if we're feeling that we're not very skilled in our personal lives, it's really, really natural for us to look at our professional lives and try to control that.
Mm.
And look, that's a bit of bypassing. I think the most important thing we can do, and how often we should be doing it, is at least every 6 months. You know, a 6 month period, we can make a
That
lot of
doesn't seem to be
decisions.
very long, though.
Well, it is if you're looking at your whole life. So I
Yeah.
would say look at, where am I happiest? Where do I feel that my potential is being
So
met?
how do you practically do that? Are you sitting down with a notebook, or what are you doing?
Well,
Are we making lists here?
well, it depends your style. So some people will come to a coach, other
Yeah.
people will go to some kind of professional development workshop.
Mm.
Someone else might read a book and the book might talk them through a process. I recommend everyone sets it in their phone as an alarm. That in 6 months you get an alarm that says, oh, it's time that I do a check-in with myself and my life. Am I going where I want to go? Or am I being carried by the needs of others?
Because it does seem to be sometimes you do get carried along. You kind of get stuck in a rut.
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah. And are women more guilty of this? Are men more guilty of this? Is there any gender influence at all there?
Well, I suppose it's always an interesting one because we know that there are differences in society around how we socialize our genders.
Yeah.
But
Men get paid more. They get better opportunities. That's just the way it is, unfortunately, still. But, I mean, do you think women tend to take more of a back seat, or is there a million reasons for that?
yeah, so I suppose what I see happen with women more so is the imposter syndrome. So what I see is women tend to generally, and these are just my experience working with women, they're not applying for the jobs that they would fit because they don't have a 100% marker. Whereas my experience working with men is men are tending to, I'm
I'll chance
70%
it,
in,
sure.
I could do the job. So I'm seeing that men are like, well, I could do the job, so I'll apply. Whereas women are like, well, I haven't done the job, so I won't apply.
Yeah.
And that's probably the biggest gender difference I'm seeing, is that kind of attitude of potential. Well, I can do it, as opposed to
Yeah.
I have done it.
Yeah, and I suppose that does happen quite a lot. You're looking at it, and historically, you talk about women having imposter syndrome more than men. It is very gender split, because you'll think, even if it goes for, if you're looking for more money, if you're looking for anything else. In my experience, a man will chance it. A woman will go, "Oh, I better wait until I've hit all my targets." Where a man might say, "Oh yeah, I've nearly hit them. I'll be grand, sure. I'll put the speak in anyway." What can we do as women to push ourselves a little bit more without um, going a little bit too far?
It's interesting, too far.
Like, what is too far?
Yeah, what is too
Because
far?
all these names are thrown as it were: bossy. If we're assertive, we're bossy. If we're firm, we're nagging. I mean, the language that are used around us is even very different.
And there's lots of research into that will say that how we speak about, we'll say, leadership qualities that women present versus that men present, we speak about them very differently. And we know that there's a bias in CVs if there's a female's name on it versus a male's. Lots of interesting research. I think the first thing and the key piece is to actually have allies. So make sure that there's mixed gender around you who support you and encourage you, and make sure you're part of the same allies for others. So you're in there encouraging people to step forward, both men and women, because this affects both. You know, there's people getting jobs that aren't as equipped for the work, but they're having to present a false sense of themselves in the interview. I know a lot of men who are going into the interviews who are presenting what they think they should present, but aren't necessarily presenting who they are. And women are doing the same, but they're often under-presenting.
But sometimes then you're in a workplace, you're stuck with somebody who bluffed their way through the interview process and got a job they're not qualified to do anyway. I mean, that's even worse, nearly, to be ending up in that situation.
Yeah, that happens a lot. And I would actually say that impacts people's mental health and well-being more so. If you end up in a role that you've had to not be yourself to attain, you're not going to feel confident and empowered in that role because you're constantly kind of hiding that part of yourself.
Yeah. There's certain skills, I suppose, that can be used across the board when it comes to looking for a job. We will have a lot of people laid off in the hospitality sector and retail, etc. What kind of skills can they have? Can they utilise to upskill, or maybe look at some other areas to work in? Because there's people here that are watching the television now, probably sitting on the couch, stuffing their face with biscuits, going, "What the hell am I going to do now?" And it's not a good place to be.
No, it's not. And I suppose the first thing is be there for a couple of days. It's okay to grieve
Wallow,
that something really bad has happened, you know, and that this is having a massive impact on your life. I suppose in the tourism industry, you know, when you think about it, there's so many transferable skills. Customer service is applicable across any industry. We always have to be able to speak to our customers. So I think the key thing for those kind of areas is to think about how you can close the gap in your CV at the moment.
Mm.
So what online training is available? Who has roles who've come out of your industry that you're aware of that you would be interested in? Reach out to them and have a conversation and ask them, what did you do to close that gap?
Because there's
Because
many skills you can get just via online courses. A lot of them are free. A lot of them you can apply for now and get back to into the swing of things more or less straight away,
there is so
remotely.
many free, that there's Open University, there's so many free, very good quality training options out there. And not only do you get to add it to your CV, but you've actually learned something which
Mm.
will put you ahead of others.
Okay, that's absolutely brilliant, Sheila. If anyone wants to contact you, how do they do so?
Pop over to my website, sheilawalsh.com.
Thank you so much.
Excellent.
There's very great words of wisdom there for anyone out there who might be panicking a little bit today. Now, time for a quick break. But when we come back, our panellist, Aideen O'Grady, joins us via Skype with top tips on how to keep the kids entertained. See you for that in 3. Very much.